All right. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys, based on your time zone. So today we are going to talk about flow. That whatever we discussed the last session, record triggered flow. We started the record triggered flow with what are the conditions and how once a record is saved, what are the actions will be performed, right? So we're going to see that completely, and on top of it, it's an automation tool, but it's not we like it will not serve the same like workflow possibility flow does. That separate another job, another behavior to do, that we will be calling it as rule process. So we are going to talk about these two in today's session. Okay, so just a quick recap in the last session what we have seen related to the flows. So flow we discussed about screen flow, how screens were built, how a custom form can be built, and how to save that user entered information into the record and everything, right? So we've developed a flow and we are to the home page and we created records using it. That's completely screen flow. When it comes to record trigger flow, as I mentioned, it will only trigger when a data manipulation has happened on that particular object. Either it's a creation or updation or deletion. So any data manipulation has happened, then only record trigger fires. So as we mentioned, Salesforce will perform a world tour. So we'll just quickly open this out. So this is the what I'm talking about. Actually, out of these around 20, out of these 20, mostly in daily day-to-day activities, we used to see few, not all, like assignment rules. So based on again based on the project and based on the what we are working, it will vary. So most commonly and must remember things are like custom validations. There is also something called duplicate rules. So duplicate rule will help us to define if you are creating a record. It will help us to identify are there any duplicates with the same data exist or not. So these duplicates will also use whenever we are creating contacts. So I'll show you end of the session how we can define the duplicate rules. The custom validations are nothing but validation rules. System validations are required fields. So system validations before trigger custom validations. So these must we have to remember that, and that is all before the before flow. It will also becomes under the before trigger or before flow. So here it is in the sixth point, it is save it to the database, which is not committed to the database yet. Then after trigger, assignment rules, auto response rules, these are a bit just to remember the, I mean, remember those names. At least they have something called assignment rules and auto response rules. The usage will be less based on the project, and workflow. We already talked about workflow. Then update record, this is the workflow action. We have something called update records, right? So here we are doing an update record. Then again, if you do any DML here, then again it will do the all the steps from system validation before trigger, after trigger. That's what I mentioned, right? If you do any DML, it will start from the again Salesforce Vault to from first onwards. Then process builder flows, then escalation, assignment rules, entitlement rules. Roll up summary, I think we already talked about when we're creating a fields from master detail. So those will be calculated. Criteria based sharing, which will falls under sharing rules, that we're going to discuss in the next session. Then it's commit, and after commit means if you are sending an email to outside of the Salesforce, in the sense if you're sending an email to a person, that email will only be sent after commit. So that's what after commit logic. Okay. So this is a simple Salesforce world tour. So that's what if you are doing any action, we have to be careful. and we have to be with respect to that Salesforce governor limits. When it comes to governor limits, few things we have to remember is number of DMLs per transaction, and there is okay number of DML statements, number of DML rows per transaction. At least as a developer or as an admin, these are the basic we have to remember. Then number of socle statements per transaction, number of socle rows per transaction. Okay, DML, I think we are everyone is familiar with the DML. DML is when you're doing insert or update or delete. Okay, so that counts under DML. Per transaction, if you see here, this and this mostly similar except statement or rows. So what is a statement, what is a rows? If I do something called insert account, okay, so this is something DML syntax. It's insert or update or delete and an as object instance, either account or contact or any object instance. So if I write something like this 10 times, okay, 1 2 3 4 5, if I have written 5 times, then number of DML statements per transaction will be 5. So how many times either it's insert or update or delete a DML statement present in that particular transaction, despite of trigger or apex or anything. This complete Salesforce world tour, how many DML statements were happened. That is number of DML statements per transaction. Let's consider this insert account. Let's say I can also insert a list. Okay, insert account list. I'm having here as a list. This will not change. When you do insert in a single instance or a list, it will count only this instance despite of number of records. So here I'm inserting one record, here I'm inserting one record, and here I'm inserting one. Here I'm inserting 100 records in a list. List is nothing but, I think we already know it, everyone knows the common term. List is a collection in a apex or whatever the language we are writing. The language what we used to code here, we used to be called as apex. Okay, this is similar like Java but not Java. Okay, so this apex, when it comes to the developer part, but just to remember, the whatever we are writing called as apex, in apex we used to write a DML like this, and a list is something, a collection to hold either a list of numbers or list of strings or list of as objects. As object in the sense account, contact, any object which is a Salesforce object, any object we will be calling it as object. So this list is holding 100 records. I'm inserting it. Okay, so end of the day I'm inserting 4 plus 100, 104. So when it completes my transaction, number of DML rows per transaction will be 104. So that's the difference between rows and statements. So number of DML statements, how many you have written. It's not only the same insert account. I can also create record from flow, right? We already seen in the last session. The same way, 1 second. Okay. The same way, if you are inserting any record from any action, either from workflow or from process builder or from flow or from trigger or from anything, if you're doing any DML from these actions, it will count against the DML statements. So this particular transaction, number of DML statements per transaction is this. If I complete this, okay, total number of DML statements is So as I said, every CRM will have certain restrictions, certain norms defined. That particular will be calling it as governor limits in Salesforce. This, okay. So total number of DML statement per transaction are 150. Okay, and total number of DML rows per transaction are 10,000. This is the limits that we have in the Salesforce per transaction. Okay, so this you have to remember it. Definitely, this can be also an interview question as well. All right, then this is all about you're doing some manipulations in the existing data, or you're doing some manipulations to the new database, in the new data which is a already existed database. Okay, so if you want to view the data whatever it has present in my database, that is something we will be like, everyone knows SQL, right? SQL, structured query language. Same like SQL, we have something called SOQL. Pardon me, the abbreviation I forgot it. One second. Okay, yeah, Salesforce Object Query Language. So SOQL is Salesforce Object Query Language. So this is similar like SQL. Okay, so this SOQL, or you can call it as SOQL or SOQL. This will help us to get data from Salesforce. So like how we used to have, right? If I want to, let's say there is something student record from table in my database. Select star from student, right? So this is what we used to do in a SQL. This most of you people aware of it. Similarly, SOQL also the, excuse me, same thing. We will not be having star in the Salesforce. So you will be having something like this. Select, you will be you have to define the fields ID comma name from student underscore underscore C if it's a custom object, or if it's account something like this. Okay, almost the same, but there will be some rules defined for SOQL. Okay, I'll be sending SOQL documentation. So beauty with the Salesforce is everything will be well written, and easily understandable languages, easily understandable words will be written by Salesforce. So if you just see the trial head, for each and every module there will be a trial head. So you just complete the trial head. You can also learn the from it, and you can also earn badges and points. So that will also help you earning badges and points when you're doing when you're attending some interviews as well. All right, so this SOQL, as I said, the DML, this each and every SOQL will be SOQL statement. Okay, so if I have a something called 10 times, let's say I have this one, and let's say I had here, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's say I'm querying here account, and I'm querying here contact, and here user. Okay, so I have 4 SOQL statements here. So this like the same DML, this thing. So SOQL also the number of SOQL statements. Here I have 4, right? So this 4 will be as number of SOQL statement per transaction will be 4. Okay, then let's say student record returns 10 records, account returns 100 records, contact returns 0 records, user return 1 record. So all this count 10 plus 110 and triple one, right? So these are the number of SOQL rows per transaction. Okay, so it doesn't mean only the same as I mentioned here. It applies the same for here too, for SOQL too. It can be from flow, it can be from process builder, it can be from trigger, it can be from Apex, anything. So these are the limits will be counted. So total number of SOQL statements per transaction are 100. Only you can do 100 times. You can write something like this. Okay, per transaction. Number of SOQL rows per transaction is 50,000. Okay, so these are the few Garner limits that we have to remember definitely. That's where you could able to it will help us to doing debugging things, and with this only we can able to survive in the Salesforce environment. Okay, so this is what about Garner limits, and so I think we discussed the Salesforce Vault to order of execution as well. So I hope everyone is clear on this. Any questions on this, guys?
No, Ashwin.
Okay, yeah, all right. So let's move on to our flows. So we're talking about record triggered flow, right? So let me click on flows. Did I save it yesterday? I don't think so. Come on. uh okay, so this each and every you can also sort by here. So let me see what I did. Content creation, yeah, I didn't save it. Okay, so yeah, as the best practice, always used to save the flow, otherwise your actions will be get lost. Okay, we talked about screen flow, and we are talking about record trigger flow. Create. So as I mentioned here, we have to choose an object. Actually, what we are trying in the record trigger flow, did we take any scenario yesterday? uh let me see what we discussed in the scenario. Sales rep, student. Okay, I think great. None of you guys remember what we discussed in the last session for scenario? So whenever a student record is creating with a record type as non-scholar, I told you to populate sponsor as individual, status as uh, alumni. That's what I remembered we discussed, right? Okay, forget about it. So the requirement is whenever a student record is creating, let's talk in the business perspective, right? Whenever a student record is creating with a non-scholar, he's a non-scholar student. So status is need not to be required. So what our manager or business analyst ask us to, hey, whenever a non-scholar is created, if a sponsor value is not populated, so sponsor either come from companies or from anyone. So for non-scholars, there will not be sponsors. So I want to populate sponsor as individual. I don't want to go and edit each and every record. Okay, and status. Let's make the status to alumni. Okay, or completed. Let's talk about alumni for now. Let's make the status to alumni and sponsor as individual. So this is what the ask from our business analyst or manager. So we have to make this automation. Okay, either it can be done by any of automation tools that we have discussed so far, but maximum whenever you're doing some automations, first go with the flow, then only go. If flow couldn't able to achieve it, there is nothing something flow couldn't able to achieve it. If there's really something flow cannot able to achieve it, go with the other automation tools. All right, so now we have to achieve this in a flow. That flow will be, so here our ask is to create a populate some values, sponsor and status. So this pre-population has to be happen whenever a record is creating. So a flow should be, it can be something like can be created or updated. For now we have to populate only on the creation, because on updation it is already populated status and sponsor. Okay, so I have to choose my object here. Student is my object, so that's why I'm going to achieve the same in flow here. So I have to do this only when record is created. Then entry conditions, we already discussed that. uh, Whenever you are going with one flow per object, don't mention entry conditions here. Okay, we can also define our entry conditions in our flow. So like, hey, I don't want to go with the one flow per flow, you want to go with multiple flows, you can define entry conditions here. Then fast field updates actions, I think this is what we discussed yesterday. This is before flow and this is after. So here, as I said in the before should do only field value, sorry, fielder values pre-population or checking some validations. Okay, so here we have to populate some value here, status and sponsor. That can be done in before flow itself, right? Not in the after. So if you do in after, it will cost again extra DML. So click on fast field updates. So fast field updates is before trigger. Then that's all. I have selected my object student. I have to trigger this only on record creation. And I did not define any my entry conditions where I'm going to define an inside flow, and it has to be run in before. So click on done. First thing is we need to save this flow. So I'm creating this on student object. So flow on student. So API name will be auto populated, description flow to do some auto populations. You can define whatever it is. Also another thing is, I think let me come back to the populations creation. You can also have one flow per trigger. Let me edit this out. So we couldn't able to achieve after and before in a single flow. Before you'll be have to create a one flow, after you have to create another flow, because it will not collision whenever we are working with before and after. So if I create with after, so before flow will not execute until we don't have anything. So we can define one flow per object per event I mean after or before. Okay, so my before flow is created. This is just a warning that there's nothing inside the flow content. Okay, so we have to define our actions here. So what we're going to have update here, so we're going to pre-populate some values, right, which are student and status. So this will only available in the before update triggering record. So if we click on this, this will do a pre-population to the same record. So I have to so this is a screen, we will be populating label and API name. So let me do, what is the label, pre-population sponsor and status. So this will be default disable, we couldn't able to change it because we are doing a pre-population values here. Okay, so what I have to populate here, so student record sponsor and this thing, right? So we have to choose the fields. So you can directly enter individual by default, and another field is status. Status will be a pick list, so that's why it will be pick list options. So you have to select the pick list option. So as I said, alumni. That's it. So I have chosen two values to be populated, what needs to be populated, and click on done. So we are not doing a really a DML, we're just populating some value in the existing instance. So this will be current record instance. So this will comes the whatever I'm click on create save, that record instance will be comes under do this particular flow, and those two sponsor and status values will be assigned with these values. Okay, we can also test this it out. Click on save, then we can see how it is populated doing in the debug. Click on debug, so we can choose existing record. So do we have any students? Okay, scholar. Are there any non-scholar student records? Yeah. So Tim David Matthew Jr. is a non-scholar student record. So let me select that. So we can select a record here whenever it's debugging. So Tim David Matthew Jr. is a student record. Just click on run. See, this orange indicates the flow, how it started from and how it's finished it off. Okay, so we can see the condition, everything here. So flow started from here. This is the user who initiated the flow, and this is the user ID, and the record student record. So we defined the object on student object. We did not define any conditions. Then we are doing some updations here. So if you see here, these are the values we are updating: sponsor and status alumni. And if you see in the original record, triggering student record values. So this is the where the place. So record type ID, last modifier, last reference date, institute name, status, alumni, sponsor, individual name. So everything. So this is what after it populates the value. This is how the instance looks like. Okay. So if there is anything rollback, we define it will be in rollback, or else it will be in here. So if you observe, actually we did not define any condition. So it will go to the despite of any student, it will go into this particular uh, condition, because we did not have any condition checks there. So we have to add it, because as I said, it has to be performed only for non-scholar records. Okay, so we have to define our condition. So on click of this plus, add a condition. So the condition will be in decisions. So check student is non-scholar. So this is non-scholar student. You can define anything here. Okay, so this where I'm referring here as conditions we can check here itself. So always when we're having one flow per object per event, we'll be defining our conditions in a decision, so that multiple decisions can be checked on this. So resource. So here what I'm going to check is the condition. If student record type is non-scholar, then only do the job. Okay, that's what we are checking, right? So as I mentioned previously, I think we did not discuss this yet. When we are dealing with a record triggered flow, so we will be having an instance which is, whenever I click on save, this particular, whenever I click on this save, this particular values, everything will be going into the flow. This is called as instance. that instance, a complete instance, will be holding in a variable called dollar record. This dollar record will help us to identify or see what user entered, what are the values available in this record. So which will be a complete instance of it without id if it's a new record creation. Okay, so select this dollar record. Then what I'm going to check here, record type. You can directly define record type id, or record type id will be from here only. Yeah, record type. Then if you know the id, record type id, we can directly define it. So what we used to do is, as I mentioned, I think I'm not sure whether we discussed this. Let me quickly give an overview here what I'm talking. So let's say you are working in a company called maybe some Mahindra Group. Okay, Mahindra Group has a Salesforce production org, where production in the sense real data exists and real end users will be playing it. Okay, when we used to develop something, we will be developing something called sandbox. Okay, there were different type of sandboxes again. So why I brought this up is, everything what we are defining is will be in the sandbox. So it's for developers or admins or bas, qa, everyone will be playing only in sandbox. So you define something, you test something in the sandbox. If it approves by qa, then only it will be pushed to the production. Otherwise it will still reside in the sandbox. So let's imagine we are doing the same flow here, and you know the record type id here. So if you hard code the record type id, something like record type dot id, okay, equals hey, I know the record type id and I directly hard code this 012 something. What will happen is, sandbox will have their own ids. Salesforce id will be varying for each and every org. Okay, so if I create a record type in Salesforce, maybe I'll show you the record type id here. So if I click on record types, so non-scholar student, so every, despite of it's a data or a configuration, everything will be having an id. So end of the day what will happen is, everything will be stored under the objects. There will be standard object called record type in Salesforce. Okay, there will be flows object in the Salesforce, standard object where we couldn't able to do anything here. Salesforce have only control on this. Everything will be stored under the object. So if I create a record type, if you see here, this 012 is the record type id, starts with key prefix. This is my record type id. If I directly hard code this in my flow, hey, this is what do. If I do create the same record type in the production, that will have a different id. So that's why we used to mention, nowhere hard coded define any of the ids. Your code has to be non id free logics. Okay, okay, so where is my flow here? So that's why what we used to define, what we will be doing here is, instead of record type id, there is something called developer name. Record type dot developer name. So developer name is the one where no one will be changing it. Okay, then what is the developer name here? This record type name is the developer name, label is the record type name. I'll be having value here. Okay, click on done. So if you see here, we have an if condition. This is something like an if. Okay, hey, this is a if condition. If non-scholar student, do this. So I have to do logics here. So click on this, connect to element, click here. Don't bother about that. Salesforce has bugs always. It's a newborn baby. So what I can do is copy element, click here, paste copied elements, and I'll be deleting this. So it's still Salesforce is working on it. So Flow is a newborn baby. It's been 2 years though, but imagine it's a CRM, a complete world, uh, one of the most popular CRM. So it needs some time to settle out. Okay, so Flow has some issues as well, but it is not something like real issues where we could able to survive with those issues as well. All right, so click on save this. So let me debug it again. So I'll be choosing here a scholar student, non-scholar student. Let's see how it will goes. So if you look at here, this is how it is navigating the flow. It started from here, it checked the decision. Okay, I have a decision here, non-scholar equals non-scholar, conditions true. It met the condition. That's why it is inside the condition. If I select a scholar student, who is another scholar student, see, it is in the else part. So that's why a debug help us to define the flow, how it's working. So it's for our imagination, what we can do and what's happening in the flow. Okay, so now everything is good to go. So I just need to sorry, I click on wrong button. Okay, all right, so I'll just update this flow before flow on student. Okay, don't matter if it ends at two or single ends, that Salesforce automatically converts it. All right, save this. Now activate this. So activation, deactivation, we have to definitely do it, guys. When you are not using, you can deactivate this out. So let me close this out. Let me close this out. Let me create a new record. I hope every of my other configuration is in deactive. Let me create a record. Sponsor, I should not populate anything. So non-scholar student. Okay, I'm choosing he will be studying in IIT Delhi and reference by some Andy. Okay, I'll leave sponsor and status as blank, creating a save. See, the sponsor is individual is populated already and status is alumni. So that's what a before flow can do. So every action whatever we are doing, pre-population things we'll be doing in the before. So let's talk about, let's say, this task creation and sending an email. So let's say I would like to send an email to the reference whoever I'm selecting here. So email sending and every other action except pre-population has to be done in the after. So let's create another flow, new flow. So I don't need this it out. So record trigger flow again, create on it. So again I'm doing on student object. So record is created or updated. I can choose, I want to do this on updation as well. So action is, it's after. Okay, so click on done, save it first, after flow on student object, save it out. So what we are going to do, whenever, let's talk about in this student, for scholar student, we made scholar status has to be populated, right? So the same scenario whatever we brought previously, status will be, whenever they set a status called attended demo, I want to create a task first thing. Then second thing is I want to send an email to the reference. Hey, you got one student was joined with your reference. Thanks for your cooperation, something like that. Okay, I want to send an email and I want to create a task to one of my team. That's what we are going to do. So this is the ask, this is the business requirement from our team. So whenever a status was attended demo, I want to do a follow-up task. So that I will be creating a task and assign it to someone from my team. Then I want to send an email. I want to send a notification to a referee, whoever refer here, to thanks for your cooperation, something like that. Like he referred the student. This student is joined under your reference. So this is doing one appreciation as well as one letting the referee knows it. He is joined based on your. So if he did not refer that particular guy, he will be coming back to us, something like that. Okay. So what we'll be doing is first we have to check condition is it has to only work for scholar students. So first we need to check the condition is a scholar student or not. So my check is scholar student check. Then if scholar student, you can define anything here, the naming convention, and my condition will be. So if you see something called here, previously we might not see this record prior. We might only see the record. So what this record and what this record prior is, this will only appear in the flow or only visible in the list whenever you're doing you selected record is updated or record is created or updated. What will this will have is uh, let's say I'm changing some. Let's consider I have a student record, right? Let's me edit this record. I have a student record. So whenever I click on edit, okay, and I change the status to joined. So dollar record will hold the complete instance of this whatever I am viewing now, and I click on save. So when at the time when I click on save, whatever the values present in that particular instance, particular UI, particular object will be present in dollar record. Dollar record prior will hold the value at the time of the values when I have on click of edit. So initial values I would say. So I did not change this previously to join. So all these values, this screen, right, whenever I click on edit, the fresh screen of edit, this will be holding in the prior. So if I change it to joined, this joined value will be available in the record, dollar record, and previous value is alumni will be holding in the prior. So it will help us to identify what is my previous value before user changes it. So that will hold in the dollar record prior. It will hold a previous value of the complete instance. Okay. So this will help us to identify what's been changed. Okay. So dollar record dot record type, right? Record type dot developer name equals. So I closed it off. I think it's scholar. Let me record type is scholar student. Should be scholar underscore student. I can define this. Okay. So scholar student, I click on that. Done. So my condition is if scholar student do the action. So what we asked is to create first task. So first we have to create a record. For that, this logic will help us to define what are the conditions and data. So data is data manipulation. This will help us to get records will help us to query, create records will help us to create, update records will help us to update, delete will delete the records. So I want to create a record, right? So I have to choose this. So I want to create a follow-up task. Okay. So I'm going to create only one record. So I'm not going to how to set the record fields. So previously, if you could remember, whenever we are defining screens, we use separate resource and literal values, right? So you can define use all values from a record. So what is the record we are going to define here? Okay, create a record from these values. Actually, it's not. It has to be use separate values only. Again, for this, because we are not going to do actions on the same record. We are going to create task. So we have to choose the object task. So whenever you are working on the same object, we'll be choosing this. Okay, so object is task. Then I have to do the field mapping again. So there were, for each and every object there will be some required fields. We have to identify those. So based on that, we'll be, at least for now, we'll create a required fields. So subject would be the required one here. Subject, I would say follow up task. Okay, and due date, how to populate due date when it has to be uh, created. So I would say current date time. So dollar system dot this, let me see if this will help us. So there will be other variables as well, global variables. You can define it here. So I have something called dollar system. I can choose the date from there, or something called, let me see, flow, what flow contains. So we can choose the current date. Active date is the, like, it's a date field, so I can choose the only date. Okay, so which will be today's date. It has to be complete on the today. Okay, what else we have? Assign to, I have to assign this to particular user. So assign to owner, that would be called as, yeah. So API name, if you don't know the API name, just we can go back to the object manager and see it. So here assign to is my owner ID. I'm not sure whether I could able to choose here. So to whom I can assign it? Created by, last modified by, couldn't able to choose. Let's consider we are assigning to the same owner of the record, whoever creating the record. Okay, or let me see whether I could able to choose. No, no option for it. Okay, fine. So let me choose owner of the record, or we can also ignore the owner. Let's see. Let me populate only subject and activity. Let's see that. Okay, and I have to create this record under the particular record. So that has to be populated. That is what ID. What ID will be the dollar record dot ID, which is what ID in the sense under what record I'm creating this. So this will, we are establishing a relationship here. Okay, then click on done. So this will do a create a follow-up task. Let me save this out and let me see, debug this out. So this will help us update it or create it, whenever you're choosing a record, we've defined it's created or updated, right? So you can change the value when we click on updated. So this will provide us the a form, so you can play without. So what's the issue with change? If I have something defined as it has to be performed only on change, you can define it. So let's say I am creating a record it, and it's for scholar student. Run it, see. So a task record will be created under this particular student. Okay, so now it's working. There is no issues here. So let's add an email as well. Click on plus. Send email alert is something that we will be using email templates. So whenever you are using an email template, you have to create an email alert, and we have to choose that particular email address here. But I don't want to do an email template logic. I can just simply send an email on fly itself. For that, we'll be choosing action. In the left hand side, there will be so many actions we can perform on this. We'll be selecting email. We have to, so all these actions can be performed from the flow. So email. So this is the Salesforce standard send email. So here we can choose what needs to whom we can send. So everything will be chosen here. So let me choose send email to reference referee. Okay, so body we can define subject, let's say okay, I'll come okay, we'll define the subject. So if I want to say subject as something like this, let me define here student name, whatever student joined, student name join with your reference. This is my subject, and hi, the reference name, referee name, comma, so and so student joined with your reference at on so and so university at date time at particular date. Thanks. Organization name, my company name, something like this. This kind of like an email. Okay, so this is what we are going to send an email to the referee. So how we will be achieving this student name? If I don't have this merge field, this I would say this is a merge field. Okay, so this is also merge field. This indicates a merge field. If I don't have something like this merge fields, I would have directly achieved this here in the subject. I can directly say, hey, someone joined with your reference. Okay, but as I have a merge field, if I have only plain text without any merge fields, I will be choosing something like this. If I have a merge field, what I'll be doing is I couldn't able to achieve this something like this. For that, we have to create some templates for it. For those are the templates available in the flow itself. So click on new resource. From here there will be so many options available here, like we can create variables to store some values, we can create constants, you can create a formula, you can create stage is a pick list options. So text template, so this is the text template will help us to define some merge field, something like this. Okay, so ap name will be like I'm going to have subject, I would say just simply subject, and body here subject will not support rich text, it has to be plain text. So you have to choose this rich text or plain text. Only body will support rich text, subject will not support rich text, so choose a plain text. So what I'll be doing here, this, let me copy this it out. So student name has to be dynamically come from my student record. So dynamic value will persist in dollar record. So I have to go to dollar record dot name. So this is the student name, right? So don't worry about this. What happened is, let me do this. Wherever you have cursor, that's where it's the whatever I have selected here is going to replace. So I'm clearing this it out. I placed my cursor here. So I'm selecting now dollar record dot name. See, it will be automatically placed there. Dollar record dot student joined with your reference. Okay, this is what my subject. Click on done. Then body, same like as I have a body as some all the stuff. So what I'll be doing is I have to create again with text templates. So go to the text template, ap name, email body. So let me copy paste this it out. Body will can support rich text. So okay, so how I need to get the referee name here, right? So the same, everything will be available in the dollar record. So dollar record dot reference. So reference underscore r will be the relationship. R indicates relationship. Okay, underscore c will indicate the field. So I can select my student referee name here, reference underscore r dot. This is again a subject. Okay, I can choose a name. So I'll be removing this set out. So underscore r will help us to I define, let's say if I look at here, so reference Andy Young will be rendering as a name field. So this reference actually a id field. It will only lookup will only hold id, where it will render a name in the ui. So if I do directly take reference, let me show you that. Dollar record dot reference. See, this is my reference. If I take this reference, this will only show me a id here. But as per my template, I have to show the name, because no one will remember id. So that's why, to get the name from the same, what we'll be choosing is reference underscore r dot name. I think something messed up. So let me clear it out and select again. So dollar record reference underscore r. So reference underscore c will give me id. Reference underscore r will give me complete object instance. You can take any field from the reference underscore r name. Okay. So again, student name. I have to choose the student name. Go to here, dollar record student, sorry, name, student name joined with your reference on university. So I want to bring university name here. So select dollar record dot institute is the university, right? I think institute, yeah, institute name dot name. Okay, so record name joined with your reference on institute name at date. So we have to choose the date. We already discussed to get the date from flow variable. You can take current date time or date. Okay, I'll be choosing date time. So here, organization name, I want to get some organization name dynamically. So what I'll be choosing here is this, also we discussed in the last before session. Dollar organization dot, you can choose name from here. So everything will be available in the flow variables. That's it. My email template looks clean now. So click on done. So body is populated. So I have chosen this for email. What we need is subject body. That's been chosen. Then to address. Who to whom I have to send? For referee. So click on this include. Then choose reference here. So dollar record dot reference contact. You couldn't directly choose reference. You have to choose email. So reference is a contact lookup dot email. So we are going to send contacts email here. If you would like to define multiple emails, you can define with comma separated. Okay. Then what happened to this? Will it not support here? it, it is only for collection. Why couldn't able to send to here? Dollar record. Okay. Yeah, fine. Now it is accepting. I think previously I have added a comma, that's why it did not. So fine. So this is the contacts email. Then rich text formatted body. This, when you are sending an rich text content, you have to select this because the email body I have selected as rich text content, right? So click on include, then it has to be. So this is something, again, it doesn't make sense but at one point, but it, what it does is you have to click on include and you have to select true or false, global constant true or false. So this global constant will help us to identify whether true or false. So that's what Salesforce global constants this. So you can select global constant true. That's it. So this my email action is ready. Click on done. Save it. Let's what is this? Okay, I think it is throwing me some warning, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, so save it out and debug this. So I'm selecting some student record. Click on run. Send email. See, this is how the email looks like. Hi, I think it did not have the reference underscore r dot name. Scholar student one joined with your reference on JNTU Hyderabad. So blah blah blah. So let me send this out. Okay, to one email and to see that. Before that, I have to update one contact with my email. Let me see. Let me update this out. So I updated for Andy Young. Okay, fine. Then let me create a scholar student record. So it has to create a task when it's a demo, right? I think we did not define the status as well, but fine. The record type scholar student, we only define the record type. Fine. I'm just creating a pickle status. So I'm creating scholar flow demo. Institute name, like say JNTU Kakinada. Reference, I have to choose Andy Young. Sponsor, I did not publish anything. Click on save. So first let's see whether task is created or not. This task is not created. Didn't we activate our flow? Okay, I did not activate my flow. So activate this out. Okay, so like let me again create another record. Scholar student flow demo after activation. Institute name, I'll be choosing Kakinada, reference, Andy Young, status, something. Okay, so if you see this related list, you can add related list, or you can also see from here this follow-up task. A follow-up task is created, right? So under the particular, this task is under the particular student record, and see the due date is today, and subject is what we populated. All right, and now let me see my email. See, this is the email. So sorry, yeah. Flow demo after activation join. This is my student name I have given with your reference. So hi, I think reference underscore order, that is not something bringing it up. We'll look at that. Flow demo after activation join with your reference on JNTU Kakinada at so and so time. So thanks, company name. So this is how we can define our templates, email templates. So so also another thing, if you want to see existing templates or variables you created, those will be available under this resource manager section. So if you see here, these are the text email templates I have created. So I think it actually yes, but why it is institute name underscore r will available but not reference underscore r dot name? That's a question. I'm not sure on this, because if this is rendering properly, why this is not working? I'll check that, guys, and I can reply that back in our communication. But yeah, so this is where we can also see the templates, whatever resources, whatever we are using, and we create everything will be under this resource manager. So pretty much that's all about these flows, and I'll just give you a heads up on other flows for a second. Flow builder, cancel it out. I did save, right? There's nothing pending. Okay, new flow. If I click on new flow, so we talked about screen flow, we talked about record trigger flow. There will be so many things actually in the record trigger flow. You can find out those in the trailheads, so you can see some more hands-on actions. You can do it there. So schedule trigger flow, this will be like you will be scheduling a trigger flow to be run daily or weekly or monthly. So that's what this do. Platform event flow, auto launcher flow will be like kind of, I would say, advanced topics, but just to give a heads up, platform event will be used mostly when you are integrating something with the Salesforce or Salesforce with some other third party tool. So that's where we'll be using this platform event. That if you want to call this flow automatically, so record triggered flow will be automatically fires whenever you do some action on the particular record. Platform event triggered flow, something happened on the platform event, this flow will be fire. Okay, auto launcher flow, this will be like you can call this flow from anywhere, from like process builder or apex. This is a flow, you define something, it will not fire on any record action, it will be fire only when you call it. That's what this auto launcher flow means. Okay, that's what pretty much about these flows. I think before we go proceed further, do you guys have any questions?
No, Ashwin, I'm good.
Okay, all right. So silence from remaining, can I consider yes or no? Okay, let's take it as sun. Yes. That's what this pretty much about these flows. And remember, guys, the flows are very much powerful tool. And as a developer, as admin, we have to remember these flows, and we have to know everything on our, mostly for admins, definitely flow should be aware of it. So check for the trailhead modules. I'll also send after the after this meeting. Check for the trailhead modules. Check for whatever we have in the flow, in the trailheads, and there are so many articles for the flows. So check for YouTube videos. There are so many YouTube videos on the flows, because flows become like one of the hot topic for at least couple of years. In the COVID time and after the COVID, flow is the, if sales, as I mentioned, Salesforce do releases, right? Despite of any other item, there would be definitely one item for flow in a Salesforce release, each and every release. So that's what Salesforce is mostly focused on, flow. Anyone just an admin knowledge can able to achieve it. So do hands on it, and it will be easy. It's just like easy peasy work we can do just with a point of clicks. So also another thing, whatever we talked about the automation tools, we'll be calling it as low code solutions. Okay, so it is a low code solution, or you can also call no code solution. All right, so you can imagine then how the coding will be. Okay, just heads up, guys. Like coding, there are so many coding we could able to achieve it. So don't imagine like Salesforce coding will be easy. It is not something I just want to afraid you guys. So we have so many things to learn in the Salesforce when it comes to developer part. So that's why that is the reason Salesforce is more concentrating on the low code solutions. All right, so let's finally talk about we have another 15 minutes, that should be fine. Something called, I said, approval process. What this will do, what is the use of it? uh, let's say, should I have an institute or should I have a course in student object? Institute, JNTK Kakinada. I couldn't able to achieve anything. Let's consider contact. Let me see. Account for now, for easy understanding. Most approval process is something, it's an approval. Revenue. Okay. So see something like this. I have an annual revenue field in the account level. Okay. Whenever an account annual revenue is more than I'm not sure I could able to count this out, but 1 million, which is I think 10 lakhs, right? Yeah. So if its annual revenue is more than 10 lakhs, get an approval from your manager. So why this is, few things, let's say in real time, in real world, in the bank, what we'll do is, let's say you're depositing some amount, let's say 1,000, 10,000, 1 lakh. These amounts will cashier do the job and completely for it. When you're depositing a 10 lakhs, when you're depositing more than 10 lakhs, something like a number, it needs some manager approval. Manager has to talk with you. There was so many things will happen, right? So behind the scene, manager has to approve the amount. So that particular check, whatever we are banks literally typically used to do, we can also achieve the same in the Salesforce. That is something called with the approval process. Approval process, the name itself indicates, it's a process of like doing some job. That particular job has to be approved by my by some user, or by your manager, by your CEO. So that what will be defined as approval process. Okay. So let's achieve the same in our approval process setup. So as I mentioned, everything, mostly we will see this screen for most of the time in our day-to-day activities. So type approval process. Okay. So this way the you will be creating an approval process. Here we can choose an object. Let's say I'm choosing an account object. So till now I don't have an approval process. I have to create a new one. Create new approval process. You can choose any of the widget. I would say jumpstart widget for now. That widget is just for creation, how you will be creating a object. Okay, so everything will have a name and unique name. So I'll be having account revenue approval. All right. So if you would like to have any template, you can choose the email template and add the submit for approval button and approval history letter list to all accounts. So this is something, when you do approval process, there is some actions will be rendered in this layout. That's what this checkbox means. Okay. So when should I trigger this? When should it happen? Okay. So whenever account revenue is greater than, right? So let me take revenue, let me type it. Account annual revenue, I think it says, yeah, here we go. So if account annual revenue is greater than or equal, what is the amount I said? 1 million, right? 10 lakhs. Okay. 1,000, 10,000, lakh, 10 lakh. Yeah. So if annual revenue is greater than 10 lakhs, 1 million, I have to do some job. I have to get some approval. So let the submitter choose approve manually. Let's say you have a team of 10 people, or you have a team of 15 people. So you want to, you have your different managers. You can choose the approver at the time of you're creating a record. That is one thing. Or automatically assign an approval to a standard customer hierarchy. You can define, okay, based on this hierarchy. So this, the roles and hierarchy is something next we'll be talking in the next session. So you have some roles, so based on your role you want to define it, or automatically assign to approver. So hey, I don't have so many these, I have only one manager, I want to assign this particular manager. So you can assign this. So select the particular user, I say my team is a queue. Let's say I'm selecting. So this would be more actually understandable when we have more than two users. I think, did we have two users actually? Let me see it. I think last session we created a one user for it, right? Uh, okay, standard platform user. I think this is the my team. Okay, so I'll create an account record logging with this record. So what I choosing here is approve this my user. Let's take approval of it, because this profile defines system admin and standard platform user. So standard platform user will not have mostly standard platform user standard users. They will not do much actions. Okay, so he has to approve it. So it's a jumpstart wizard, or you can also achieve that with standard wizard as well. Okay, forget about it. Click on save. So this is just a warning. So we couldn't able to save it. We couldn't able to use it until it's activated. Okay, view approval process detail page. So what actions need to be added? So I said, right, like in the workflow also we see the same. So what should happen, what? So this is being defined as what? So what actions should take care of it? So whenever a record is submitted for approval process, record has to be logged. That Salesforce will take care of it. Okay, so if you want to define a certain things, let's say I want to log this record until this been unlocked or until this been rejected, no one could able to make any changes in that particular record. Okay, then approval steps, what will be happened? So I added one approval step right here, new like a user that we selected previously, which user should has approve this. So you can also define multiple approve steps. So if I want to add another user, I can also add another user here with the step number 2, and I can do which user do the what action. Okay, or also another thing is, if you want to update this account, is there anything something called status active? Okay, customer priority, checking for something. Let's say, yeah, I would like, if the rating is cold or odd, this is also not making sense. Let's say whenever they submit for approval, I want to make this like, update this to the type, not the type, but let's imagine there is something called status field. Okay, I want to make the status as on hold. So you can also do that field update from here, approve steps. So if you click on new approve step, update field, so click on next. So which all records should enter this step. Okay, next. Or you can choose the criteria. If I want to only, hey, only these status will enter, you can also choose that. Click on next. Especially the approver should optionally choose whether approach delegate also allowed to approve these actions. So this is for rejection. Actually, what should happen if it rejection? Let me go back to my. Okay, so here in the initial itself, we can update the field as I mentioned. If I want to update any of the field, if I want to create a task, if I want to send an email, we can do from the initial submission actions. Approval step, you can add next if you are not available, or if you not like, let's say you want to add the another same user role, so you can add that in the approval step. Then what is the rejection action? So what is the final approval action? So it can be like you want to, like, update status to from on hold to completed, something like that. You can also update here with the field update. And final rejection action, if user uh, rejected it, what will happen? Unlock the record. So everything can be defined here. So final approval action, if after the record is also approved, only manager can do the action. So you can also define that. So recall, what should happen if something is rejected again? It will go from the initial. So let me activate this route. So I'm logging in this user. Okay, so go to accounts. So clear all. I'm creating a new account. So account name, uh, approval process demo, and annual revenue is the one we need, right? Annual revenue, here we go. I'm populating as 11, 12,000, 12 lakh. It's 12 lakhs. Okay, so this is the annual revenue, right? So let me save this it out. So here we have to submit for this approval. So he has to submit for approval. Click on submit. Then related list, this is what I talked about. Actually, approval history will be defined. So this is a approval request is created by this user, and step one is assigned to Ashwant. So if you see here this record, he couldn't able to make any actions until this record is locked. So here we go. Until this record is approved or rejected, he couldn't able to do any action on this. So that's what this approval process will help us. If I log out from this user and if I go back to this account, I can see that. Okay, it did log me out completely. If I go to my accounts, so all accounts, so this is the account recently created, right? So here it did not add related list for me, so I can add related list here. So I can add related list here and I can approve it. Let me add it quickly. So related list will be calling it as the related list is something like child. Go ahead from this. I think it is there approval history, but why it didn't show me for me? Back. Okay, I think previously it did not refreshed or rendered. Fine. See, my team is the user. He submit for it, and step one it is waiting for my approval. So I can do either recall this, which is it will again go for the starting and he has to make some actions, or reassign. If I want to, hey, I couldn't able to assign this. Let's say I want to assign this to my senior manager. I can reassign to some other user here. Then if I can approve this or I can reject this. If I approve this, I can add my approval comments. Approved. So then this record is approved, this particular account record. So whenever an annual revenue is something more than this, so this particular process is called, we'll be calling it as approval process. With this approval process we could able to achieve by like solving this revenue process, or whenever you're taking a record, whether should we go with that or not. So those decisions can be achieved with this approval process. So that's what about this approval process, guys. So just play around with this approval process. It will be just straightforward whatever we discussed, like the workflow. So you can do a number of actions on this. Okay, so before we close for the day, any questions, guys?
No, Ashwin.
Okay, so one more update is I see a couple of Robert, but let me stop recording.